Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to start constructing the album. So in the cutting guide, you should have cut out your chipboard pieces. You should have cut out 2 pieces, 8 by 10, for the back and the front, and then you should have cut out a spine piece that is 3 by 8. So you should have done that. You also, for the, you should have cut out some Tyvek pieces. You should have cut out 2 of these. They are 1.5 by 8, so we will need that. We have little Tyvek covers that you should have cut, and they are 2 by 8. And then to cover the Tyvek all together, you needed to cut out a piece. What was this one? 3 by 7.5. So that's going to cover all that. And to wrap our chipboard, you needed to cut from your white cardstock. You needed to cut this 8.5 by 11 down to 8.5 by 9.5, and you needed to attach them together with score tape. Put a little piece of score tape down the side here, and then attach the 3 pieces together so you'll have one great big long piece. So let's do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so after you attached your 3 pieces of cardstock that were cut down 8.5 by 9.5, you should have this great big long piece that should be 8.5, and I think it comes out to like 25 inches. And what I did on mine to help me to wrap my chipboard is I went in 3/4 of an inch and marked it with pencil to keep me in line, and I also did the same thing on the bottom, you know, all the way across the whole bottom, so I could keep it in line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the one cover here, and this is going to be 8.5 this way, and it's going to be 10 across, and that's how we're going to be placing it on our paper, is 10 across. And I'm just going to line it up like this, and then attach it to the cardstock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put score tape around the bottom, you know, all the way around, and 3 down the center. And I'm also going to be using a little wet glue also here. And the wet glue I'm going to actually be using is, for this right now, is Fabri-Tac, because I like to use this also, because Fabri-Tac will not warp paper, which is really nice, because a lot of wet glues will warp paper, but the Fabri-Tac will not warp paper, so I won't get any of the bubbling, warping, and I will do that. And then for some of the other smaller, intricate, I will be using the art glitter glue for some of those. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put this piece down, and then I'll show you what mine looks like, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do when I start attaching the spine piece. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I have this piece on. So what I'm going to do is I have a ruler, and I'm going to come over 1/4 of an inch and make a line. So what this ruler actually has comes out 1/4 of an inch here, so I'm just going to set it on top of my chipboard, come out 1/4 of an inch, and then draw a line. And then I'll take my spine piece, put my score tape on the back, and then I'm going to line it up right there. That way I'm 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll make sure I'm lined up to this. Not necessarily my line here, because I can tell I'm off by just a fraction here, but line it up and make sure I'm even. So I'll have this to let me know I'm even. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my spine piece, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so I have the spine piece on. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to come out 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the chipboard, make a line. I'm going to take my other piece, put score tape around, then I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to line it up right up to that line there, and it'll be just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The next thing we need to do is we need to what we call miter the the corners. And what that is we're just going to come in about 1/8 of an inch from the tip and cut. I just made a line. It's just easier for me to cut if I make a little line. And I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. Is just come over, about 1/8 of an inch or 1/16, make a mark, and then just cut. And so that's what we're going to be using for wrapping. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut right on my little line. And then I'm going to do that on the other 3, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, I cut all 4 corners, so this is what they look like. I know this is really a long piece to get in the film. Okay, and just to let you know that the paperweight that I'm using for my cover is a 65 pound. It's just easier to fold, the 65 pound, but all the pages inside will be 110 pound. I'll need that for the strength, but for the cover, it's just going to be easier for the 65 to do any kind of a bending with this album. So the next thing that we're going to do after we miter our corners is we need to apply score tape to the inside here to hold everything down. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take our tape and we are going to run a strip around the whole perimeter of the chipboard, and then we'll go around and we'll add another strip around the paper. And so let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, all my corners have been mitered. I know this is a really long piece. And the next thing we're going to need to do is we need to get out our tie-back. Our 2 tie-back pieces, because what we're going to do is we're going to be putting them on right here, like this. One over this hinge and then one over here, like this. So that's what we're going to be doing with our tie-back. And what we need to do now is we need to place our score tape, one on either side of the spine. And then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. And make sure whenever you place your score tape that you do burnish it really well. Get it right, the adhesive right in there. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to remove the score tape. We're going to take our tie-back piece. We're going to place it right there. Kind of center it, in here. And then we'll have that just like that. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I have my tie-back on, and I'm just going to burnish it really, really well into that score tape. There we go. Now what we need to do is we need to get our 2 tie-back covers. And you should have 2 of these. And I do believe they're 1.5 by 8. I do believe 1.5 by 8. No, they're 2. These are the 2 by 8s. They go on top of here, and they're just going to go right over and cover up the tie-back. That's what they're going to do. So they're going to go just like that. So I'm actually going to apply my score tape to the back of this, and then I'll line it up and center it. Just like that. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, everything's attached, and this is what it looks like. Okay, now we need to start wrapping our paper around our chipboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to condition our paper, and just to get it used to seeing how we want to do. So we're going to go around and condition our paper up onto the chipboard. And then after we do that, we're going to come back and we're going to start laying our score tape, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I've gone around and I've conditioned my paper, go around all the edges. So now we're going to apply our score tape on the album. So what you're going to want to do is take your tape, and we're going to go all the way around the perimeter on the chipboard, and then we're going to go all the way around the perimeter on the cardstock. Now the cardstock weight that I am using to wrap my album is the 65 pound. And so let me go ahead and wrap all my paper and chipboard with the score tape, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I have my score tape all the way around. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work on the long ends first. I'm going to remove the score tape, and I am going to add some wet glue in here, especially right along the chipboard edge here, so when the paper folds over, you get a good bit of glue right along this seam right here. So you're going to want to do that. I like to use the art glitter glue and go right up in there and make a little strip all the way across, and so I get a good fit there. So let me go ahead and I'm going to do these two longer edges first, and then we'll get started on the shorter side. Okay, I have those down. And what I like to do after I wrap these is this edge right here. I just like to take my bone folder and I like to actually burnish these edges, and it makes them flat and it just looks a lot better. So I like to do that all the way. So, and it looks real nice. So now we need to remove our score tape from these edges here, and what we need to do is we need to bring in the corners before we bring this down. And what you need to do is you just need to take your finger, your bone folder, and just move that over, that little piece. Just bring it over, and you'll bring it over on this side too. I don't know if you can see, just bring it over. There we go. Just comes on over like that. It just covers up that little corner with your paper. That's what that does. Okay, so now all we have to do is remove our score tape, add a little piece of wet glue around the chipboard, fold it over, and bring it down. And I'll do that, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to get our cover for the spine here, and this should measure, I know it's 8 by 3. And what we're going to do is it's going to be going right in the center right here. We're going to be coming down about 1/4 of an inch from the top, and you should be like 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, and we're just going to center it right inside in here, because this is 3 inches right here, so this should fit right in here. Just center it 1/4 of an inch from the top, 1/4 from the bottom, center it, and then we're going to attach it. Now what you're going to need to do with this is you need to put score tape completely over the whole back, the whole thing with score tape, and then we're going to put that down, because this is holding your all your pages right here are going right here, so there's a lot of force on this piece right here, so that's got to be attached really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my score tape, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I have the whole back side covered with score tape. I used a 3/4, 3/8, and then I had a 1/4 inch that I put on the side here. Now what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to flip it over, and if you see any tape overhang, you definitely need to cut that off. So you need to make sure there's nothing sticking out. And what you're going to want to do is remove all your backings, place it in here. I actually had to make little pencil marks because I can do this 5 times, and as soon as I take my tape off, I'll do this and then I'll be off. So it's just the way it just happens to me all the time. So I went ahead and made little pencil marks, so I know I had to come up 1/4 of an inch, and then I can go over here a little bit because I have to make a little mark over here so I can see exactly where I need to go with this. And then if there are any pencil marks showing, I'll just go ahead and just erase those off. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I have my spine cover on. So the next thing we're going to be doing are our pages. So what we're going to need, according to the cutting guide, is you need to cut 5 pages, and we're going to be using the 110-pound weight cardstock for our pages. And we need to cut these at 7.5 by 10 1/16, and then you're going to place these in your scoreboard, and you're going to measure over on the 10 1/16 inch side. You're going to go over to 9.5 and then score. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do that on all 5 pages. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Okay, I did mine, but what I wanted to do on mine that you don't have to do, it's you know, you don't have to, is I went ahead and did a decorative punch on the edges of all my pages, but it's not necessary. I just wanted to have a decorative edge on mine. So you can either do it with or without. The decorative edge I used is a 1/2 inch punch. So yeah, so let's go ahead and, if you're going to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to be attaching the pages here. And it's kind of like doing a sideways waterfall. We're going to be attaching our score tape on the edge where we did our scoring, and then it's just going to line up, and it should fit exactly with our spine cover, and we're going to attach it just like that. We'll flip it over. We'll take the next one. We butt it up right against this one, do it down, and then you just do it with all 5 pages. So that's what it's going to be like. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the score tape to mine. And your score tape, when you fold your pages, you have the mountain fold here, just do it on that side. And I'll show you what mine looks like in case you get a little confused on that one. Okay, I have all my score tape on. So this is kind of like, see how the page, this flap goes like that, and the score tape is on the flap like this. So what you're going to need to do is take a page, remove your score tape, so it's on the bottom like this, and then with your spine you're going to measure, you're going to line it up right where your spine cover, right on top of your spine cover edge, right here. So you're going to take it, go to the edge of your spine cover and put it down, and then take it all the way up to the top. It should be a perfect fit, and then just burnish it in really good, and then that will be the first page. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll go from there. Okay, I got my first one down. I'm just going to burnish it really, really good. Now it is very, very important, if you have any score tape hanging off, you clip that off, because everything will get stuck on that later on and on your pages. So make sure you clip that off so you don't get any dust or anything over time building up on those little exposed score tape pieces. So that's what we do here. So that's their first page, and that just goes over just like that. And then we take the second page, we remove the score tape, and you take it and you butt it up right up against that page, and it should go right into it just like that. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, I got the second one on, and we're just going to continue doing that until we have all 5 pages. Just remove your score tape, butt it up against the end of that, fold it over, burnish it really well, and just continue on down. Okay, we can attach the last page together, I think. So I'm just going to set it up. This. Come all the way up. Make sure it's all lined up, and then press it down. Okay, all our pages are in. That's what we have. And I like that one, just like that. Very good. Perfect. Okay. So what we need to do now is we need to see what papers we want to use to cover the outside of our album with. So let me go ahead and pick some papers out, and we'll get started with that. This is the paper that I'm choosing to do the cover It's going to be the front and back cover and the spine are going to be all in this paper, and it looks like this on the back. So I just need to cut my pieces down. I need 2 pieces that are 7 7/8 by 9 7/8, and then one that is 3 by 7 7/8. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my pieces of paper out, and I'll show you what I have. Okay, I have my 3 pieces cut for the front and back cover and the spine. So what we're going to need to do, I am not going to be inking any of the edges on my papers for this album because it's a wedding album and I do want the white edges actually, which is odd because I usually always ink my edges. But for this album, I am not going to be doing that. So what we're going to do, because it's going to fit, it's going to have a little teeny bit of a white border all the way around. And that's all I want. It's just about a 16th, maybe even an 1/8, but no more than that. And that's how it's going to look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing score tape around the whole outside of the album. As a matter of fact, I'll place my score tape and then I'll show you what it looks like. So let me do that. Okay, this is what the taping looks like. Now I have a double-sided line on this side because I use a Dritz closure when I do my albums. So I want the extra support here for the eye. And then I also do it on the back, even though it's not really necessary for the back, but I just do it anyway. It also keeps me in line with how the print on my album is going to be, because I don't want to just put one here and then accidentally put it on like this side going the other way, because I like to keep the patterns the same on the front and back covers. So, so that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to remove the score tape, and then I'm just going to attach it to my album, just like that, for the front and back cover. And I'll also do the spine. The spine I did like this. I think this is all that we're going to be needing to hold this in, to hold this down in place. So I think that'll be good. So that's going to be my spine. Okay, so let me attach my papers and I'll show you how mine turned out. Okay, I got my book covered. This is what it looks like. And I do all my decorating at the very end. The main thing I do in the beginning is get all my papers down. So that's the very first thing I do, is I'm going to start just getting all the papers on, my pages. So I'm going to start working on my pages, and we'll get back and we'll start working on the inside of our album, and we'll start on page 1. Okay, this is the one I'm going to be using for my base page for page 1. It's this one, has this little lace on the top, and it looks like that on the back. And all our base pages are going to be the same size, 7 1/4 by 8 3/4. So so that's going to be that. And we're also going to, I'm going to be using dies throughout this whole album. The dies I'm going to be using on page 1 is going to be this die here. This is the Heartfelt Creations Regal Borders and Pockets, HCD1 779. I'll be using the Fleur Border Basics, the HCD1 7120, and the Ornate Borders and Pockets, HCD1 780. Now you don't have to use these, dies for yours, but let me show you how I have this, my plan for this page here, is I was going to put the pocket here. That's this die right here that made that. That's the one right in the middle here that made this design here. So I was going to do that. And that was going to sit right in here. And on the outside I was going to have a flip out. And I was using this die here, and I'm actually using this one. And I'm also using the solid piece. This piece here that does that, to cover up all these little pieces that things can get stuck on. So I'm just going to have that. And it's going to be all in white since this is a wedding album, so you can see it. I just did that. That way nothing gets stuck on these little going in and out. So I have that planned to go here over that. And then on top of this, I was going to have a flip going up and down. And I was using this die here, and I was using this one, and I was also covering it up with the solid piece. So we have the two that go like this. One goes on the bottom, and then one's going to go on the top. And it will be held down with magnets. So that's what my plan is for this page number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking for some paper that I want to use on this. And also I'm going to start attaching, I can start attaching everything together, and then we can add our paper. So let me go ahead and start putting everything together first. So the first thing we're going to want to attach is the pocket. Now it's not a wraparound pocket, which I sometimes do. This one's actually going to be put down on the front with a little hinge, so it will give us some extra room to tuck things in. Now all the measurements are in the cutting guide for this. So you can either, if you use the same border die, the same die as this, then all you need to do is just put your paper on. You're going to notice that you're going to add a little bit to the end, because it's not quite long enough to do all the way across this page, because this is a very large page. But it works, and that's how mine came out. And or you can just use a straight edge punch, which would be fine. You might not want to make your pocket this deep if you do that, but that all depends. And so yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just attach this down. I have flaps on either side. I'm just going to cut off these little, you know how when you fold over, you get the little corner, this little square here. I'm just going to cut that out. It'll just help with bulkiness on the sides there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those out, and then I'm going to attach this down just like that. So let me go ahead and do that. I just want to show you real quick what I did. I cut out the little corners on the bottom, but I also snipped off little ends that fold in up here so that you don't see them through the top here. So I just cut that off, and I did that on the other side too. I just cut that little piece off so that when you fold it over, you don't see that. So that's what I did. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach it. Okay, I have the pocket glued on, and it's just like that. There's plenty of room to put anything in. So we just need a piece of paper to. I'm not going to be giving measurements on the pattern paper because unless you're using the exact same thing I am, your measurements are going to be totally different. So we'll just measure to fit. And this is the paper that I'm going to pick to cover my pocket. It's this one here, and it goes like that. And how I managed to do this is I took the paper behind here, like that, and I made a pencil mark. And then I just cut along the pencil mark. And then I just trimmed it to fit in here. So I'm just going to glue that down, and then we'll go on to the next part. Okay, so now the next part of this page is this flip here. So that's where this one is going to go. It's just going to flip like that, and it's just going to open up. So what we need to do is find some paper to put on the front and the back of this. So let me go see what I can find. Okay, so this is what I'm coming up with as far as the paper goes. Now I try to use up as many of my scraps as I can, because I always end up with a ton of scraps. No matter how careful I am, I always end up with so many scraps. So what I'm going to be doing is actually just using up most of my scraps before I start cutting up other papers, because I only have 2 paper pads and I really need to make it stretch. So on this flip out, on the cover here, what I'm going to do is I have these 2 pieces here that I found in my scraps. I'm going to be putting one on this side, and then I will be putting one on this side, and then I have this picture here that I'm going to be putting in the middle. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the front. So that's my plan for that. Now on the inside, I was going to put a pocket, and I was going to wrap it around. I said, wait a minute, I can't wrap it around because I have this piece right here. So I just had to glue it flat. But I already put my paper on because I needed to get that part done so I would know. And then I got this piece here that I'm going to be attaching down here. So that's going to be the inside, and then this is going to be on the outside. So let me go ahead and get all those pieces glued on, and then we'll go to the next part. Okay, this is what it looks like all covered. There's this, and then this side with the pocket. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fold on the outside seam, put it on my page, make sure it's lined up, and then I'm going to tack it down, and then I'll move that over, and then it'll look like that. So let me go ahead and get this attached to the page, and then we'll start on the upper and lower flips. Okay, for the upper and lower flips that are going to go on like this one's going to go on the bottom, and this one's going to go on top, and it will be held in place with a magnet. And the paper that I picked out to do that is for this one here. I cut out this piece here, and it's that on the back to go right here. And then when you flip it over for the inside, I've got this piece here. That'll go in there. So that's for that. Or was I going to use the gray? I don't know. It's either going to be pink or the gray. And for the bottom, for the outside, I got this piece here. Looks like this on the back. And on the inside, I have this piece here, and it looks like that on the back. And that's going to go in here. So let me get all my pieces glued on, and I'll show you what I've come up with. What I forgot to tell you, and what I forgot to do, is we need to place our magnets before we attach certain papers. On the top flap, the inside, you need to place your magnet first before you put your paper down. And on the bottom flap, you need to, line up where your magnet needs to go, because I had to take my paper apart and find out where my magnets need to go because I totally forgot that step. So please don't you forget it. I'll be right back. Okay, I was starting to put score tape on the back, but anyway, this is what it looks like all done up. So we got a flap here, and then this goes over, and then we have a nice size pocket. So this is page 1. Now we just need to put score tape. I've already started putting score tape all the way around and then down the center, and this is going to get mounted in our book. So let me finish putting my score tape on. Okay, for page 2, I'm going to be using this for my base page. That looks like that on the back. And it's going to be a simple page, really. We are going to have a flip that goes to the right and a flip that goes to the left, and that's basically it. So what I'm using this die here for my edge on my flap, but you don't need to do that. And like I said, I'm using the covering them up. So I'm going to have one go on the right side, and then I'm going to have one go on the left side. And it's just going to go like this. And then on the page itself here, I'm going to be using this corner here, and I do have this die. It's this die right here, the HDC 27190. I'm using this one right here. And what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to be putting one on this corner and then one on that corner, and you can just be able to tuck a photo right in there like that. So let me, I can go ahead and put these on now. They just wrap around. They just wrap around the paper. I'll just attach those like so. Get those attached on, and then we will see what we can do about getting some paper for this. The measurements are in the guide for this, but I can give you a rough idea what I'm working with right now. It looks like it's 9 1/4. This is what it looks like I'm doing. 9 1/4 by 7 by 7 1/4. So that's what we have here. And then I scored. And they're both going to be the same. I scored it 8 1/2 and 8 3/4. But I might make this a little bit smaller. I don't think I need a 1/4 inch spacing for this, so I'm going to go ahead and just probably go, instead of, what did I say? I'll just do an 1/8 inch on this instead of a 1/4 inch. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I have my pages attached. Also, I went ahead and put my magnets on now so I do not forget. So this magnet is going to go behind the right flap, and then it's going to get attached on the back of the base page. So that's how that's going to close, like that. So now all we need to do is find 4 pieces of paper that are going to be cut at 7 1/8 by 6 7/8, and that will cover these. Or you can just use your scraps and just, just put different ones together, which will work out just fine too. I'm going to go see what I have, and then I'll show you what I have. Okay, this is what I've picked out so far, and I'm not going to totally complete this page yet because these are such large pieces. I need to make sure I have enough paper because I only have 3 paper pads, and this is a large album. I just will come back to that later as I'm going along to see how I am with paper. But I am going to put this piece right here on the front of this flap, and then I'm going to put this piece right here, looks like that, on the front of this flap here. And the 2 inside flaps I'm going to hold off for now and see how I go paper-wise. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and just set this aside. I'm not going to mount any of my pages in my book yet. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started on page 3. So let me go ahead and put these on, and then we'll get started on page 3. Okay, page 3. Page 3 is going to be a waterfall. So that's going to be basically a pretty easy page. And this is what I'm going to use for my base page. It looks like that on the back. I know it's so pretty, isn't it? Oh, I have a hard time with that. You're going to need to cut 5 pieces that are 5 1/2 by 7, and on the 5 1/2 inch side, score it a 1/2 inch. As you can see, when I originally did it, I made it too short, I thought, be placing pictures or anything on it, so I extended mine a little bit. Now my papers that I cut ahead of time too, which we all learn from our mistakes, is what I'm going to be doing is just adding something here on the top of all of them so that you can get a larger picture here, because before it was just too short. It was just a little something here, and I just kept thinking about it, and I says, nope, I got to make it a little bit bigger. And I didn't want to just throw all these away because, after I went through all the die cutting, I just added a piece to extend it to 5 1/2, and then, scored it the 1/2 inch. So that's what I'm going to do. And the die that I used, the decorative die that I used for this is this Heartfelt Creations Classic Border Basics, the HCD1 7119, and I used this one right in the middle here. That's what I used for that. So it looks real pretty. And, that's why I'm not going to give you any measurements for paper, because you might use a different die than me, and so the measurements would be different. So 5 of these. I already cut all my papers that are going to go on the front, and then the ones that are going to go underneath. The only thing I need to do now is I'm going to go through my scraps and get a piece. I'll measure and see what the size is here, and I'm going to put it right in there. And I'm going to butt it right up against this because I want to make sure I make this crease line strong. I might even go over it a little bit just to give that stability there, so it's not floppy like that. So that's what I'm going to be working on. So let me go paper hunting. and see what I can come up with my scraps, because I got plenty of scraps, and just, you know, coordinate colors and see what I can come up with as far as covering up that little piece I had to add on. You won't have this problem with yours. You will just take and measure out your 5.5 by 7, and then cut your pattern paper to fit, and you won't have to worry about this. You'll be fine. So I am going to go see what I can do as far as finding some papers for these, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, well, I have all my papers on my waterfalls, front and back. So I did all 5 of them. So they were all done, and they turned out really nice. So what I need to do now is I need to take score tape, and I need to place some on the flap so that I can start putting it on my page. So let me go ahead and put some score tape on these flaps, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have my score tape on, so I'm going to remove my score tape, and I'm going to align it right here because I have it centered, and I know I need to be right here, just like that. So that's where I'm going to be for this, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down, and I'll start putting my waterfall in. Okay, I have the first one on, and then I'm just going to burnish it really well. I'm going to take the score tape off the back of this. And you're going to butt it up right up against this one here. Down. Okay, now I'm going to continue with the other 3. Okay, I've got them all on, and this is what it looks like. And I think what I'm going to do is I cut this out. I have this Martha Stewart punch that punches, you know, strips like this. And I'm going to place a magnet here. Well, I might place it on the back. I might place a magnet on the bottom of this. And then just use that to hold this down. So that's what I think I'm going to do. And to cover this up, because you will be able to see the magnet when I put it on there, is I have these little hearts that I cut out of the paper pad. Little hearts. I was thinking about just putting one of those on there to cover up the magnet so you can't see it. So let me put that together, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I attached this, and then I put the little hearts down here because there's a magnet on the back of this one. So all I need to do now is just hold this, but not real too tight. Just hold it where I want it to be, and find the mate, and then just put that one right here. And then I'll just let that glue harden there. So this page is complete. There we go. And I just need to put score tape all around, and then I'll put 3, 1 down the middle and 2 on either side, and I'll cover that up too. So I will go ahead and do that. Okay, I have the double-sided tape on the back. It looks like this. And the punch that I did use to make this latch to hold the waterfall is this Martha Stewart punch. I'm not really sure the name of it. I've had this for a while. And yeah, and it does, and it punches like that. So this is the one I used. So this is that. So I'm going to just set this off to the side because I'm not mounting any of these in our book yet, because there might be some more embellishments or things I want to do before I do that, and to see how I am with my paper. So let's go on to, I think we're on number 4.